I'm Michael Counts, founder of A-Plan. The purpose of this video is to share the theory behind the technology platform that we use. I'm going to begin that with a little bit of my experience with working with my coach. The origin story of our company is that I was the client of Sarah Alice Conant, my coach and now partner in A-Plan. And we used our experience of her coaching me and sort of tinkered with it. My background in user experience and technology and entertainment and media led me to the question, like, how could coaching be better? How could I get more out of this experience? I was at the time paying a lot, large percentage of my income into it. It was sort of a reach for me. So I thought, if I'm going to pay this much for coaching every month, I want to get the most out of it. And I started to just think about how can I maximize my experience? And that led to some insights that led to the design of the tech platform. So I'm going to explain that and sort of show you some graphs that I made to illustrate what my experience was at different stages of my coaching journey. This is a graph that I've used to describe what was a common experience of my week when I started coaching, before using any kind of technology or engagement. When coaching was just once a week, I'd talk to my coach for 30 minutes. And what this graph shows is sort of my mood, the level, my experience of my life over time. The beginning of it, moving from left to right, is sort of I'm living my life and bumping along and having ups and downs or whatever, but just living my life. And then the day before my coaching session with Sarah, she would send me a reminder, said, hey, here's the coaching prep form, fill this out in advance of our coaching session tomorrow. So as I filled out that form, which asked questions like, what have you accomplished this week? What are you grateful for? What are some wins? What are progress towards the goals you're working on? What would you like to talk to me about? What are challenges that you've been facing this week? As I reflected on those things, my mood would lift. And my mood would lift because in the process of self-reflection, I would see that I'd had a great week. And I'd see all the wins because I was trying to kind of identify them and acknowledge them and document them. And so my mood would lift. And then I'd finish that writing it all down and I'd kind of go back a little bit down. But I would still overall stay kind of higher than what I'd describe as my baseline, because I was just sort of up from seeing the week that I had had in a positive way. And then it would lift again. I'd have the coaching session the next day and that positive feedback and we'd interact and it'd get deeper. We'd talk about it and I'd make, sort of where was I going to go from here and things that I wanted and new insights and new intentions, and that'd lift even more. And then we'd finish the session and it kind of like drift back into my life and go back to my baseline. Okay. So that's my week in a normal week. This is my week when I started having more frequent contact. And I realized that if I was in touch with my coach a little bit more, a text here, a text there, if I started to make notes of things that I might want to put in my coaching prep form the day before my session, my experience of my week would change. I become aware of things in real time. And I might text her about it. I might write it down. And then filling out the coaching prep form, I'd lift, but not as high because my baseline was up a little bit. And then I'd have the coaching session. And that might even be, because of the work I'd done with the week, that might even be a higher high than it had been, in a normal week. And then the last graph I want to show you is what my experience of my week is like with ongoing contact. And this assumes use of the app, right? So we eventually designed an app that encouraged me to track what we now call micro accomplishments and gratitude and wins, progress towards specific goals I was working on throughout the week. And I have reminders set to engage me in that. I've developed a habit and I've put this app on my phone. So it's like very readily available to me. And I started tracking things in a much more active way, like every day. Instead of, I'd open my phone, instead of going to Facebook or Apple News to scroll, I'd like see the app icon. I say, oh yeah, what did I do today that I'm excited about? What feels like a win? And I started creating a habit of tracking gratitude and wins and celebrations. And what I realized in doing that is I just raised my baseline. Like I never went down to the place where I'd been before, where I was just kind of living my life, but unconscious of my own growth and progress. And by creating that new habit and engaging with it in an ongoing way, I had raised my baseline. And now my coaching session was still a peak, but it was not such a gap between my normal baseline and the experience of coaching. Coaching, as opposed to being something I did once a week, was something that I brought into my every day. And that to me is really one of the great insights of A Plan and how we've designed this tech and why this platform is different than how other companies might use tech in terms of being an administrative support for scheduling or payments or just simple reminders or note taking. This is really integrated. And I'll say one last thing, one last feature that I think is one of the most exciting and critical for our platform is that we know that positive feedback is really meaningful to anchoring growth, right? When we receive positive feedback, dopamine is released in our brain. It creates rewards and further connections. And neuroplasticity is a thing where, really, as you learn, new neural structures are formed. And that's really, in some ways, the very definition of to learn and to grow. And positive feedback encourages that neural development. And so we added a feature to the app where anytime I, as a client, interact with the app, my coach gets a notification. They get pinged on their phone that says, oh, Michael just added some things to the app, and they can give me positive feedback in real time. Just simple, an emoji, a high five, a thumbs up, something that feels like someone's watching and paying attention to my growth, paying attention to my positive forward motion and my success. And the reason that social media is addictive, that people post things and people give them positive feedback and they go back to the well for more and more. And I think that this is just a much more positive overall reason for that kind of feedback to exist and for it to have a greater impact on my own growth and development and ultimately happiness and success and sense of fulfillment in my life. And we've seen this now over and over again work with many clients and be something that we're now building on. We're releasing the next generation of the tech platform, which really builds on all these insights in a way that's much deeper, much richer, much stickier, much more engaging than what we've had for the last 5 years. And we're excited to have you be a part of it and to help us evolve this technology and its application within coaching, which we know to be so beneficial to people. So hope that makes some sense. If you have questions and thoughts, this is obviously a part of a community in which we're trying to facilitate each other's learning about what we're doing at A Plan and why it works and how we can build upon it and grow as a company. So thanks for listening.